Hey guys, welcome back to Sleep with History, where the past doesn't scream, it sighs. Tonight, we're not strolling through lush green jungles or wandering under waterfalls like you see in travel brochures or movie sets. We're not in the paradise of postcard Mesoamerica. No, tonight, we're stepping into the dry season. Not just dry like your throat in the morning, but dry like cracked earth. Empty pots, brittle bones beneath a sacred tree. The kind of dry where the wind doesn't blow because even the air forgets how to move. You might think the Maya world was all temples and astronomy and jungle cities filled with songs and rituals. But tonight, you'll feel the quiet desperation of Maya farmers waiting for clouds that never came and praying to gods who didn't always listen. This is the story of dust, of drought, of soft footsteps walking toward empty storage huts. It's not the Maya world in bloom, it's the Maya world holding its breath. And trust me, by the end of this slow, strange journey, you'll never look at rain or even your kitchen faucet the same way again. Before we begin, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from tonight. What's the weather like where you are? Drop a comment if you feel like it, and if these soft, sleepy dives into forgotten history bring you any peace at all, consider subscribing. It helps us keep whispering the past into the night. Now, dim your lights, turn on a quiet fan, let your body sink into the mattress beneath you. You're not thirsty, you're safe. But imagine for a moment, you're not here. You're standing barefoot in a Maya village. The sun is overhead. It hasn't rained in weeks, maybe months. You smell nothing but dust and sweat. The fields look tired. So do the people. And you just walked out to the old ceiba tree, not because it gives shade, but because it's where the dead still listen. You sit, you close your eyes, and you begin to whisper. Let's begin. Section 1. When the last rain fell. You remember the sound before you remember the silence. The last rain of the season didn't arrive with drama or thunder. It came softly, like a curtain being drawn shut. You were standing near the edge of the maize field, not really a field, just a stretch of uneven, tired earth pocked with stumps and stone. The sky had been gray all day, a strange gray that didn't promise anything. No thunder, no lightning, just a single breeze. Then a single drop landed on your shoulder, warm, unexpected. You looked up, another, and suddenly, like a quiet apology from the sky, the clouds wept. The soil drank greedily. You opened your palms not to catch the rain, but to feel it, as if this brief kiss from heaven could sink through your skin and keep you alive until the next one. But deep down, you already knew. This was the last one. This wasn't a beginning, it was an ending. The elders said nothing. They watched the water run down their forearms like they had seen this 100 times before. Their faces were lined not with worry but with resignation, a quiet nod to the cycle they could not control. It rained for maybe half an hour, maybe less. The children laughed, of course. They always do. Little hands scooped up mud and smeared it like paint. They danced in puddles, stomped and spun. You wished you could feel that kind of joy again. But you were old enough to see what the rain hadn't touched. The roof still leaked, just like last year. The large ceramic pot by the hut caught barely enough to last 2 days. And beneath the banana trees, the new seedlings still looked pale, brittle, like the rain had skipped over them on purpose. That night you ate early. Corn flatbread thinner than usual, no beans. The dried chilies were almost gone. The fire crackled with damp wood, and steam rose from your clothes. You lay back on the woven mat. The ground was still warm from the sun earlier. You listened for more rain. None came. The silence was not comforting. It was not peaceful. It was too wide, too deep, too still. Even the frogs, those tiny, noisy gods of the wet season, had gone quiet. Someone down the hill beat a drum, one slow thump every few minutes. A warning, a memory you didn't ask. No one did. The next morning, the puddles were gone. The ground was dry again, almost angry that it had been fooled by the sky. The paths between houses were already dusty. The corn leaves began to curl. The old woman in the third hut burned copal. Thick, sweet smoke drifted into the morning air. She whispered to her gods, to the tree spirits, to the bones under her floor. You watched her hands, steady, deliberate, draw shapes in the air that no one else could see. By noon the heat had returned, that dry, pressing heat that settles in your chest and makes your ears ring. Water was rationed again, 2 small bowls per person. You sipped slowly, pretending to savor it. But it tasted old, clay and ash in time. You could feel it slipping down your throat like something ancient. In the distance, someone was digging. Not planting, just digging. A new hole for catching runoff. Another for waste. Someone else was rechecking the old choltun, the stone-lined pit that might, if you were lucky, still have a damp wall near the bottom. A boy came running with a frog in his hands. He held it up like treasure, a sign. The others didn't smile, they just nodded. The frog was returned to the bush gently. No one wanted to anger the spirits. At sunset, you sat beneath the ceiba. Its roots bulged like the backs of sleeping gods. Its branches were bare, skeletal against the dying light. The tree didn't move, didn't whisper, didn't offer shelter. It simply stood watching. You whispered your own small hope to the dirt. A name, a date, a promise. And that night, you dreamed of rain that never reached the ground. Drops suspended in the air, frozen, unreachable. You reached for them in your sleep and woke up dry. And still the season was just beginning. Section 2. Waiting for the sky. There's something strange about watching the sky too long. Your neck starts to ache, your eyes blur, you start to imagine shapes that aren't there. You blink and hope the next time you open your eyes, the clouds will be real. But they never are. You sit outside the hut on a small wooden stool that wobbles on the hard-packed earth. The morning sun creeps higher, bringing with it that faint shimmer, the one that makes the air seem like it's breathing. But it's not. It's holding its breath. You squint toward the horizon. There's a line of trees far in the distance, too far to matter, and above them, nothing. No gray, no blue, just that blinding white. You wish for a cloud, not rain, not yet. Just a shadow, a hint, a smudge in the sky that could become something more. The elders used to say the gods hide behind the sky in the dry season. They watch, they listen, but they don't answer. Your neighbor says she dreamed of smoke. Not fire, just smoke drifting through her house and turning into birds. She thinks it's a sign. You don't ask what kind. Someone says a lizard climbed the ceiba this morning. Another says they heard a hummingbird sing at midnight. Tiny signs. People will believe anything if it points to rain. By noon, the heat presses down like a thatched roof falling slowly. No breeze, just the sound of a man fanning his wife with a palm leaf. She's pregnant. The baby kicks, they say, when the sun is highest, maybe angry, it must be born into dust. The ground is so dry, it looks angry. Each crack is a wound. Each footprint leaves behind a small cloud of powder. Even your own toes seem to protest with every step. You go to check the old water jars, still half full, still covered, still precious. You run a finger along the rim, tasting nothing but clay and sunlight. In the distance, you hear someone call out. A shout, then laughter. False alarm. Just a bird's shadow, not a cloud. Even the shadows play tricks now. A boy walks by with a bowl on his head, covered with a wet cloth to keep it cool. He doesn't look at anyone. He walks slowly, like the weight of the water is a holy thing. Because it is. Inside the hut, the walls sweat, but you don't. You've run out. The fire is low, not to save wood, but because no one wants to cook. Food tastes like memory during dry season. It fills the belly, but not the soul. You take a nap in the hottest part of the day. Not because you're tired, but because there's nothing else to do but wait. And waiting under the sun is crueler than sleeping through it. In your dream, you're walking through fog, cool, moist, clinging to your skin like the memory of a river. But you wake with dry lips, and the only thing clinging to your skin is dust. That evening, the children point at a patch of sky that looks slightly darker. Is it a cloud, maybe? but by the time you look, it's already gone. The frogs remain silent. The drums are quiet. No smoke rises from the altars tonight. The gods are still hiding, and the sky remains blank. But still you sit, and watch, and wait. Because that's what dry season is, a long, slow waiting. Not for water, but for permission from something bigger than you to hope again. Tomorrow you'll wait again, and the day after that, until the sky remembers you exist. Section 3. The dust beneath your feet. You don't notice the dust at first. Not really. It creeps in softly like a whisper. At first, it's just the way your feet feel chalky after walking, the way the corners of your hut seem to lose their shape. But one morning you step outside, and the world is no longer brown. It's pale. Pale in a way that feels wrong. The path from your door is coated in a layer of fine silt-like dust the color of old ash. You step into it, and it clings to your skin like regret. Every movement sends a soft cloud into the air, tiny puffs that rise and swirl as if the earth itself is sighing. And that sigh never ends. Every surface holds it. The stone by the cooking fire, the water jars, even the maize leaves still alive, but dust-covered, as if they're already half dead. You try brushing it away, but dust doesn't move, it settles, and every time you think you've cleaned it, it comes back, like a memory, like a ghost. The children draw shapes in it with their fingers, lines and spirals and eyes. Then the wind erases them gently, like a parent wiping tears from a cheek. You walk to the field. The soil crumbles beneath your heel. Not soft, not muddy, but hollow, as if there's no water left inside the earth, as if the ground is holding its breath, waiting to be forgiven. The footprints of last week are still there, not because they were deep, but because the earth hasn't moved since then. No rain to reshape it, no moisture to bind it. You see the marks of animals too. A jaguar maybe, though it could have been days ago. Birds, even the tail drag of a lizard searching for shade. But no new tracks, nothing fresh. The world has paused. A man passes by carrying firewood. Each step leaves a print. Each print leaves behind silence, the kind of silence that feels dusty too. In the afternoon, a woman fans her baby with a woven mat. The baby coughs a soft, dry cough, and the woman blames the dust. But it's not just the air. It's the world. The dust is in everything now. You feel it in your teeth, in your nose, in your throat, when you wake up and your mouth feels lined with powder. You rinse with water, but even that tastes dusty, because it's stored in clay, because nothing escapes the dust. You remember last season's rains? How the mud stuck to your ankles and pulled at your sandals, how it caked on your legs like armor, how people complained about the mess. Now you miss it. You'd trade anything for it, because at least mud feels alive. Dust just feels final. In the temple courtyard, the priests sweep before sunrise. Every morning, again and again, as if keeping the gods' house clean will remind them to send rain. But the dust returns before noon. Even the altars are coated in thin beige. The ceiba tree stands at the edge of the village. Even its roots, usually moist and dark, are now dry and pale. You sit beneath it and draw small circles in the dust with a twig. Each one collapses after a few seconds, the edges crumbling inward, as if even shapes can't hold themselves together anymore. A bird lands nearby, fluffs its feathers, and lifts off, leaving behind a tiny swirl of motionless air. You watch it disappear. Nothing follows it. The sky is blank. Your mother used to say that dust is what the gods walk on, that when you see it rising in the wind, it means they're nearby. Now you wonder if the gods have left, and the dust is what remains of them. That night, you close your eyes and feel grit beneath your eyelids. You brush your pillow and find a fine layer. You shift, and the mat beneath you makes a soft scraping sound like dried leaves. You dream of walking, just walking, across a field made entirely of dust. No trees, no sky, no sun, only steps, each one softer than the last, until finally you feel nothing beneath your feet, as if you're no longer walking on earth, but floating in memory. And when you wake, the first thing you do is look down. Your feet are still there, still covered in dust. It hasn't rained. You already knew that, but you checked anyway. Tomorrow, there will be more dust, maybe a little deeper, maybe a little quieter, but still there waiting beneath your feet. Section 4. Maize. That refused to grow, you held the seeds in your hands for a long time. Too long, maybe. The skin of your palms had gone dry, cracked in thin, white lines like the surface of the fields. The kernels were small, not the proud golden ones from festivals or royal stores. These were hard, misshapen, dusty. But they were all you had. You crouched in the field that morning, the sun already peeking through thin clouds that wouldn't last. You dug with your fingers, gently pressing each kernel into the earth, one at a time, a rhythm like a prayer whispered with your hands. Somewhere behind you, someone coughed, a low, dry rasp. Someone else muttered something about planting too early, or too late, but no one really knew anymore. The rains didn't come when they used to. You looked around and saw the other hills bare open, abandoned. Only a few patches had been cleared this year, too dry, too risky. You covered the seeds with earth that felt more like powder than soil. Then you sat back on your heels and looked up at the sky, and nothing happened. 3 days passed. Nothing. 5. Still nothing. On the 6th day, a shoot appeared, a single thin green blade pushing its way out of the brown. You stared at it like it was a miracle, like it was your child's first smile, and you smiled too. Then the sun rose again, and the wind came, not a breeze, not gentle, just heat and movement and silence. By midday, the shoot had curled. By dusk, it had withered. By morning, it was gone. You tried again. More seeds, another patch. You carried water from the old jar, one bowl at a time, dripping it slowly into the ground like feeding a sick friend who can't swallow. But maize isn't just thirsty. It needs more than water. It needs timing. It needs earth that's alive. And you knew this earth was too tired. The older farmers said the soil had forgotten, that too many years of fire clearing and planting had broken its memory, that it needed to rest. But rest meant hunger, and hunger meant loss. So you didn't let it rest? None of you did. You watched other villagers try different things, planting deeper, planting in shade, whispering old words into the dirt, mixing ash and bones into the holes. One man buried a jade bead with every third seed. He said the gods needed payment. He didn't smile when he said it. Still the field stayed silent. The children asked when the tortillas would be back. You said soon. They nodded. They always nodded. But they knew what soon meant in dry season. It meant not now. It meant maybe. It meant never. At night, you listened to your stomach. It made strange sounds, not hungry exactly, just echoing, like it missed something, like it was remembering what it used to feel like. You dreamed of maize growing, tall stalks, green leaves rustling in soft wind. You walked between them, arms out, brushing the edges, like they were curtains, and you heard laughter and water and music. But you woke to silence again. One morning a boy came running, calling out a stalk, a real one. People followed him to the edge of the path. And there it was, a single, healthy plant, somehow untouched. It stood tall, its leaves wide, its base firm. And no one could explain it. Someone said a spirit lived in that spot. Someone else said a rabbit had urinated there. Another joked that the gods missed. They left it alone. No one dared harvest it. They let it grow, a shrine of green in a desert of beige. Weeks passed. Your own field stayed bare. You could count the green leaves on one hand. The rest were dry, curled like old fingers, as if the plants themselves had given up. You stopped counting days. You stopped checking each morning, because the answer was always the same. Still nothing. Still no maize. You boiled bark for tea. You chewed bitter roots. You stretched what little cornmeal you had by mixing in ground seeds, even ground clay. It didn't taste good, but it made you feel full for a little while. You walked through the field one evening, just as the sun dipped below the trees. The light was golden soft. It made the dead stalks glow like ghosts. You reached down and touched one. Its leaves crumbled in your fingers, like paper, like dreams, like the sound of a promise breaking. And yet you didn't cry. No one did. Not anymore. Because this is what dry season does. It doesn't just starve your belly. It starves your hope, one root at a time. But you still plant, because one day, maybe the maize will remember how to grow again. And you'll remember how to wait. Section 5. The ceiba tree and the dead. The ceiba tree doesn't bloom in dry season. Its branches, once thick with leaves and sacred flowers, stretch bare into the sky like the bones of something ancient, something too tired to lift itself anymore. But even now it watches. Even now it listens. You walk to it slowly, always barefoot, always alone, because the ceiba isn't just a tree, it's a door. The path is quiet. No insects buzz, no birds call. Even the wind seems to pause when you pass. Your footsteps stir only the thinnest dust, the kind that lives between stones, the kind that remembers things. At the base of the ceiba, there are stones, not placed neatly, not carved, just there, heavy with silence. Some say they cover the bones of your ancestors. Others say the roots grew around the dead on their own. Either way, this is where you come when you need to speak with someone who no longer answers. You sit. The ground is cool, shaded not by leaves, but by something softer, perhaps memory, perhaps reverence. You place your hand on the root beside you. It's smooth, worn down by generations of hands like yours. Mothers, fathers, siblings, all those who waited beneath this tree before you. You don't say anything yet. Words feel too loud at first, so you breathe, slowly, softly, until the rhythm of your breath matches the stillness around you. Then quietly, you begin to speak. You don't use names, not anymore, not here. Instead, you speak to feelings, to smells, to moments. You speak of the child who hasn't laughed in days, of the last gourd of water hidden under cloth, of the way your bones ache not from labor, but from stillness, of how dry season takes not just crops, but voices. You say you are tired, but not in your body, in your waiting, in your silence, in the heaviness behind your eyes when you look at the sky. You ask them not to fix it, not to bring rain, just to sit with you a little longer, to remember what it felt like to be alive, to help you carry this quiet. And in that moment, the root beneath your hand feels warmer. Or maybe your body's just given up the last of its cool. Either way, you pretend it's an answer. Someone else arrives. They stop a few steps away. They don't greet you. They don't need to. No one speaks loudly near the ceiba. Even the children know this. This is not a place for play. This is a place for presence. You listen as they kneel, as they murmur something, maybe a song, maybe a name. You hear the soft clink of a small offering, maybe a bead, or a bit of dried honey cake wrapped in woven fiber. It joins the others, left at the base of the tree. All offerings look humble in the dry season, but all offerings matter. The sun begins to shift. The shadows stretch longer. You let your hand slide from the root to your lap. Your fingers are dusty now, but you don't brush them off. That dust carries stories. It carries the breath of the dead. It carries the waiting. You lean your head back and stare up into the tangled sky of branches. No leaves, no movement, but still the shape is beautiful, like ribs, like wings, like memory. You whisper one last thing, not a request, just a truth. I'm still here, and you think maybe that's enough. Not hope, not strength, not even faith. Just presence, just breath, just one hand resting on the root of something older than fear. As you walk away, you don't look back. No one ever does. The ceiba doesn't need your eyes. It already knows your footsteps. It already knows your voice. And it will still be there long after the last rain, long after the last prayer, long after even the sky forgets your name. Tomorrow you might return, not to ask, but just to remember what it feels like to be listened to. Section 6. Water you can't find. You don't ask for much anymore. Not a full jar, not even a bowl. Just enough to rinse your mouth in the morning. Just enough to hear it trickle. To remember the sound. But remembering doesn't fill your hands, and the jars are light when they shouldn't be. You wake early, not because you slept well, but because your body gives up trying. Your tongue feels swollen. Your breath tastes like clay. And your throat scratches with every swallow, as if each sip of sleep itself had grit in it. The hut is quiet, no fire this morning, too dry, too risky. You step outside, and the air is already warm. Not hot yet, but sharp like a warning. You tie a strip of cloth around your head, lift the empty gourd jar to your shoulder, and begin walking. There's a path, but not many use it now. It leads toward the old chultun, a stone pit, carved into the earth by those who came before you. It's hidden behind low trees, tangled with dry vines. You follow it out of memory, not sight. The dust rises with every step. It coats your legs, your sandals, your breath. You try to walk softly, but the ground doesn't listen. It crackles under your soles like old firewood. Halfway there, you stop to rest. The ceiba is long behind you now. The only sounds are the insects, not the happy hum of wet season life, but the frantic hiss of dry wings rubbing together. You reach the chultun by mid-morning. The opening is narrow. It breathes cool air, and for a moment you think it smells like water. But it's just stone. Stone remembers everything. You lower yourself into the hole slowly, carefully. Each stone step is worn slippery with fine dust. At the bottom the air is damp, not wet, not promising, just old. You squat beside the wall and press your fingers against it. It's cool. You drag your hand slowly along the curve, and there it is, a trace of wetness. Not a puddle, not a drip, just a dark stain that your skin wants to drink. You press your gourd to it, tilt it, wait, nothing. You scrape the stone gently. A few beads slide into the jar, barely enough to see. But still, you whisper thanks, because gratitude, like thirst, doesn't need to be full to be real. You sit in the dark a little longer. Let your eyes adjust. Let your bones forget the sun. This place was carved long ago, by hands just like yours. Hands that were thirsty too. Hands that knew the dry season wasn't a season, it was a second life. A harsher one. One that didn't reward the loud or the strong, but the quiet, the patient. You trace a glyph etched faintly into the wall. It's nearly gone. A swirl, a drop, a face maybe. No one teaches what they mean anymore, but the feeling is still there. You climb out slowly. Your jar makes no sound when you shake it, but it feels heavier than before. You tell yourself that means something. The way back feels longer. The sun is higher. The heat sharpens. Your feet burn against the packed trail. You think about stopping, but there's nowhere cool to sit. Nowhere private, not in dry season. Everything is exposed, even you. At the village edge, you pass a woman carrying nothing but a bowl of leaves. She smiles faintly. You don't know her name. You just nod. That's enough. Inside your hut, the shade feels like water. You sit. You pour what little you found into the family jar. It barely covers the bottom. A child peers in. You don't speak. She walks away. Later, you watch the sunset and wonder how deep you'd need to dig to find the water the gods forgot. Someone once said that the gods drink first, and if they're not thirsty, they don't share. But you hope they're done drinking soon. You hope they remember your name, because tomorrow you'll go looking again. Same path, same dust, same stone. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find enough not to drink but to believe. Water you can't find is cruel, but the hope that it might still be there, that's what keeps your feet moving. Section 7. Rituals for rain. You know the sound before you see the smoke. A low, slow drumbeat distant like a heartbeat buried in the hills. Then the smell follows. Sweet, sharp, copal resin burning somewhere nearby. thick and ancient, like time itself is being burned. You rise from your mat without needing to be called. Everyone does. These things aren't announced, they're felt, the way animals feel thunder long before it arrives. You walk toward the plaza, bare feet, brushing over powdery earth. Your skin is already warm, but the heat is different here. Not from the sun, from belief. The priest is already waiting. His face is painted with streaks of blue and black. His eyes are tired. His chest is bare. He looks like a man who has seen too many seasons, too many silences. And still he stands, still he asks. The altar is simple. Stones arranged in a rough square, dried feathers, shells, tiny bundles of maize and chili. He begins with water, the last from the sacred jar, poured slowly into a carved bowl that hasn't been full in months. The bowl doesn't drink it, it waits, just like you. The chant begins low. Not words you understand, not fully, but syllables that pulse like waves, reaching upward, upward, begging the sky to look down. The villagers gather in a circle. No one speaks. Some cry, but even tears are measured now. Nothing is wasted in dry season, not even grief. A woman steps forward with a chicken. It does not struggle. Maybe it understands. Maybe it's already halfway to the gods. The priest lifts it, whispers to it. Then one quick stroke, a crimson ribbon, a sound like a sigh. The blood spatters on the stones, and suddenly it feels cooler. You don't flinch. You've seen this before. But still, the smell of fresh blood always feels louder when the air is dry. Children watch from behind their mothers' shawls, eyes wide, mouths closed. They are learning the price of asking. More offerings follow. Honey, ground cacao, little bits of jade. Each item is placed on the altar with care. Not because the gods demand beauty, but because precision is a form of prayer. The priest lights another bundle of herbs. The smoke thickens, it curls around your body, clinging to your skin, your lashes, your breath. You feel dizzy, but not in a bad way, in a way that makes the world feel less sharp, like the air has finally remembered how to move. Then the song changes, faster now. Hands clap, feet stomp, voices rise. This isn't mourning, it's demand, it's desperation wrapped in rhythm. It's a village shouting upward, not out of anger, but out of need. You join in, not with words, but with presence, with stillness, with listening, because sometimes the loudest way to pray is to be silent. The ritual ends without conclusion. No one cheers, no one speaks. The priest lowers his head, the smoke thins, the drums stop, and everyone waits. You stay in the plaza longer than the others. You stare at the sky, searching for change, for a shiver in the light, a flicker, a bird flying the wrong direction. But the sky is still, utterly still. You return home and find your clothes smell like smoke. You don't wash them. You let the scent stay, because it reminds you that you asked, that you knelt, that you gave what little you had. That night you listen, to the roof, to the wind, to the space where rain might fall. But only quiet comes, and so you sleep, not because you're at peace, but because you're exhausted, and the dream of rain will have to do until something real arrives. Rituals don't guarantee anything, but when the sky won't answer, at least you know you've spoken. Section 8, Children and Empty Pots. You hear it before you see it. A soft, hollow sound. Wood tapping clay. Rhythmic, aimless. A game, maybe, or maybe not. You step outside and find the child sitting cross-legged beside an empty water pot. He holds a stick, taps the rim. Not fast, not with joy. Just steady. Tunk, tunk, tunk. It echoes more than it should, because there's nothing inside. You watch him for a moment. His eyes are focused, but not curious. He's not pretending it's a drum. He's not pretending it's anything. He just knows it used to sound different. When it was full, when life was louder. Around the village, other children sit under shade. Some play with dry leaves, others draw in the dust. No one runs, no one screams, not during dry season. The air is too still for games, the world too quiet for laughter. The adults say they're conserving energy, but you know the truth. They're learning stillness. They're learning waiting, just like everyone else. You remember how it used to be. Chases around the huts, laughter echoing off stone, a squeal when someone spilled water and slipped in the mud. Now there is no mud, only memory, and dust that doesn't wash off, only smears. Inside one of the huts, a girl rocks a smaller child in her lap. She hums a lullaby with no words. The baby doesn't sleep, just stares, eyes wide, mouth dry. You don't interrupt. Even comfort is fragile now. You notice the clay bowls on the shelf, turned upside down, washed clean days ago, but never filled again. The mothers wipe them daily, not for cleanliness, but to keep something sacred from fading the act of preparing, even when there's nothing to prepare. A boy reaches into a pot, as if something might have magically appeared. He pulls his hand out slowly, empty. He shrugs and walks away. In another corner, a little girl holds a corn husk. She pretends to feed it to a doll made of sticks. She arranges small stones into a circle, pretending it's a hearth. She stirs dust with a twig. You watch her mouth move, mimicking the sounds of boiling, sizzling serving. She offers the first bowl to no one, to the air, to memory. You kneel beside the child with the stick, the one still tapping. He glances at you, then goes back to the rhythm. Tunk, tunk, tunk. You ask softly, "What are you playing?" He pauses, thinks, then says, "I'm listening." To what you ask, he taps again, waiting to hear the water. Your breath catches, but you nod, because you're doing the same. Aren't you in your own way? Every day, every hour. You ask if he remembers what it sounded like when the pot was full. He doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. His eyes are too young to remember, but his hands, they keep tapping. You offer him a sip from your pouch. He shakes his head. "No," he says, "I want to wait." You don't insist. He's old enough now. Dry season makes everyone older, even the smallest ones. Later, you walk past a group of children tracing animals in the dirt. One girl draws a jaguar. Another adds rain above its head. They name it Rain Jaguar. It guards water, they say, but it only shows itself to those who are truly thirsty. You ask how you find it. They shrug. You follow the thunder, one boy says. But there is no thunder, you reply. That's why no one's found it, yet, he answers, as if the logic is perfect, and in their world, it is. That evening, the children gather near the big fire pit. No fire is lit, there's no wood to waste, but they sit in the circle anyway. Habit, comfort, shadow. An elder tells a story about a time when water flowed from the rocks, when the sky cried so hard people had to shout to hear each other. The children listen, not with joy, but with longing. Their eyes are heavy, but they don't blink. They want to believe. The girl with the corn husk doll whispers something to it. The boy with the stick rests his chin on the pot. One by one, their heads begin to nod, not out of boredom, but out of hope, that maybe if they dream hard enough, the water will come back by morning. You stand quietly and watch them sleep, the smallest shoulders rising and falling. A chorus of breath, soft and even. No one cries. They've already learned what not to expect, and how to make stories fill the space where soup used to be. The pots are still empty, but the night feels full, of imagination, of gentle lies that feel kind, of sacred pretending. And sometimes that's all you have. Children don't need to be told the world is dry. They feel it, they carry it, and somehow they still find ways to dream inside it. Section 9. The Woman Who Saved a Single Gourd. You didn't notice her at first. She was always quiet, moved slowly, spoke even slower. Her hut was smaller than most, her doorway lower, but something about her presence, it lingered, like smoke, like the scent of old wood, not loud, but lasting. She lived with 2 children and a blind grandfather. No husband, no complaints, no loud greetings in the morning, only the sound of grinding, the gentle beat of cloth against stone, and sometimes, when the wind was still singing, barely above a whisper, as if she was humming, not to be heard but to remember. And always the same gourd hung from the ceiling beam in her hut, wrapped tightly in a piece of cloth, tied with cord made of twisted bark, high enough to be out of reach, high enough to make people wonder. Some believed it was a sacred item, a family charm, maybe a vessel for ashes or words or something older than both. No one asked, not in dry season. In dry season, privacy is the last thing you have left, and people protect it like water. But you notice the way she looked at it, not every day, only when she thought no one was watching. A glance, soft, almost like apology, as if even looking at it too long might make it disappear. You tried to count how long she'd saved it, months maybe, since before the sky stopped listening, since before people stopped planting, since before even the children stopped asking when dinner would be ready. She kept it hidden during the food gatherings. When villagers shared leftovers, crushed seeds, bitter roots, she stayed near the edge of the group, gave a little, took less, but always had a calmness that didn't quite match the season. Now you understood why. One night, the youngest of her children, a boy barely walking, began coughing, not from smoke, not from dust, but from hunger, the kind of cough that comes from an empty stomach for too many days. You heard it, everyone did, thin and papery, more breath than voice, but it scraped against the night, and it made the other children restless in their sleep. She stayed up with him, held him against her chest, rocked him gently, sang with lips pressed to his hair. No fire burned in her hut, but still a warmth glowed, the kind that doesn't come from flame, but from resolve. That night you passed by her home, maybe by accident, maybe not, and through the thin walls of woven reed you saw her reach up, hands trembling. She untied the gourd, cradled it as if it were alive. She didn't open it right away. She sat with it in her lap, closed her eyes, spoke something you couldn't hear the words, but you felt them. They weren't prayers. They were farewells. Then she opened the lid. The smell was faint. Old maize, a few dried beans, something pickled, maybe fermented squash. It wasn't much. Not enough for a meal, but enough for a chance. She boiled what she had over a candle flame. No wood wasted, no water lost. She crushed the maize with her own fingers, not the stone, every movement slow, every drop sacred. The child drank it in tiny sips, eyes closed, hands clutching the gourd's rim like it was a lifeline. He didn't finish it. She did not force him. She placed the rest back into the cloth, tied it again, hung it once more, though it sagged now, half weight, half hope. By morning the child sat up, spoke his sister's name, touched the blanket with interest, smiled, just once. And that was enough. News spread, not through whispers, but through glances. People noticed the gourd was lower now. Not full, not empty. Something in between. No one asked what had been inside. No one dared. But everyone looked at her differently. Not with awe, but with respect. Not loud, but steady, like the way they looked at rain when it finally arrived, with silence and thanks. Days later, she gave what remained to her grandfather. She fed him slowly, wiping the corners of his mouth with a cloth she had kept clean just for this moment. He didn't say a word, but the way he leaned into her hand, that was the kind of blessing even the gods couldn't give. And when the gourd was truly empty, she cleaned it with her own breath, wiped it gently, hung it back on the beam, not as a container, but as a reminder. You pass by her hut still, and you look at it, the empty gourd swinging just slightly with the breeze, a hollow thing, but not meaningless. A symbol of a woman who didn't feed the village, didn't lead the rituals, didn't shout to the sky, but quietly, patiently kept one seed of mercy tucked away for the exact moment it would matter most. In a season of hunger, she chose one meal for one child on one night, and in that moment, the world felt full again. Section 10. The Walk to the Sacred Cave. It's not marked on any map. There's no carved sign, no well-trodden path. But you know the way. Your grandmother showed it to you. Her mother showed her. And someone long before them must have walked it barefoot too. The walk begins before dawn, always before dawn. The heat is too sharp by midday, and the cave doesn't welcome sunlight. You rise in the dark when the air still carries a hint of cool. Your sandals are tied tight. Your pouch is half full. You carry nothing else, not even hope. Because this is not a journey for the hopeful. It is a walk for the desperate, for those willing to ask the earth for what the sky has denied. The village is still asleep, but a dog watches you go. He doesn't follow. No one does. This is your task. You pass the old ceiba, touch its root briefly, a gesture, not a prayer, just a promise to come back. The forest doesn't move. Not a single leaf shifts. Even the birds are silent, as if the trees themselves are holding their breath, watching you, measuring you. The ground rises and falls beneath your feet, rocks hidden in dry grass, thorns that catch your sleeves, a branch that snaps louder than it should. Every sound feels unnatural, too loud for this silence, too loud for this sacred walk. After a while, the forest begins to change. The trees grow older, taller. Their roots rise from the soil like sleeping serpents. The shadows grow deeper, cooler. And then you see it, the mouth of the cave, low, dark, almost like it's exhaling something you can't see. You crouch to enter. The ceiling is low at first. You move with your hands on the walls, stone slick with age and damp memory. Inside, the air changes, not cleaner, not colder, just quieter. You light a small flame, a wick soaked in sap, enough to see, not enough to disturb. The cave narrows before it widens again, and when it does, you find it, the pool, still, shallow, and precious beyond words. It doesn't ripple, it doesn't shine, but it is there, and that is everything. You kneel, not from reverence, from need. Your knees meet cold stone, your breath fogs the air. You lower your bowl into the water, slowly, carefully, as if waking something beneath the surface. You don't drink yet. You wait. Let the cave recognize you. Let it feel your presence, your silence. You whisper something. Not a chant, not even words, just breath in the shape of longing. The bowl fills. You lift it to your lips and sip. It tastes of stone, of time, of everything that came before you. It's not sweet, but it's real. You drink only what you need, then refill the bowl, for the others, for the ones who couldn't come, for the woman with the empty gourd, for the child who still taps on clay. You glance around the chamber. There are old carvings here, faces, eyes, open hands. No one teaches what they mean anymore, but you feel them watching, not judging, just present. You bow your head, not because you were told to, but because it feels right. And then carefully, quietly you leave, back through the low tunnel, back past the sleeping roots, back into the slow light of morning. The air is warmer now. The world has returned to dryness, but you carry something it doesn't have: a bowl of water, a story to tell with your hands, a gift from below. You return to the village in silence. Some look up as you pass, some don't, but all know where you've been. All know what you've done. You place the bowl on a flat stone near the fire pit. Someone will take it soon. No need to speak, no need to explain. They'll sip, they'll nod, they'll remember. And when it's time, they'll walk to the cave too, just as you did, alone, silent, carrying the weight of thirst and the even heavier weight of belief. In the season when the sky forgets you, sometimes the earth still remembers. Section 11. Prayers in the Mouth of the Earth. You return before the sun rises again, not because someone asked you to, not because anyone even noticed, but because something inside you whispered, once is not enough. The cave waits as it always does. It never changes, and somehow that brings you comfort. Everything else shifts: the trees, the faces in the village, the weight of your own hunger. But not the cave, not the mouth of the earth. You crouch at the entrance, feeling the air thicken as you draw closer. There's a dampness here, the kind that touches your skin, but doesn't cool you. It smells like stone and soil and the breath of old gods. You whisper your name not aloud, but in your mind as you enter. You duck low, the ceiling brushes your back, your shoulders tense against the narrow stone walls. But the space opens quickly, like the cave is exhaling, welcoming you in. You bring a small candle wrapped in cloth. No torch, no flame too big. Too much light can chase away things that are meant to stay hidden. You step barefoot onto the rock, feel its cool, pitted surface. Every indentation might have been carved by water, or footsteps, or prayers, who knows. The pool is still there, unmoving, thin, a mirror of nothing. You don't disturb it. Instead, you kneel beside it, hands resting on your thighs, eyes half-lidded. You are not there to ask. You are there to be still, to offer your presence like a feather laid at the feet of a sleeping beast. You light the candle. Its flame flickers once, then steadies, a small, shy glow. You breathe, once, twice, and then begin to speak. Not in formal words, not in rehearsed chants, but in the language of being alive. You say, I am afraid. You say, I do not know if we will make it. You say, I carried a bowl of water and spilled none, but it wasn't enough. You say, my mother no longer sings. My brother no longer dreams. You say, we are shrinking. And the stone listens. It doesn't echo, it doesn't nod, but it holds every word. As if the cave has no mouth to speak, but 1,000 ears to keep. You feel the tears rising, not from sorrow, but from the stillness. The way the silence meets you and does not flinch. The way the air accepts your breath as part of its own. And for a moment, you remember what it felt like to belong, not to the village, not to the gods, but to the earth itself. You reach forward and place your palm flat against the wall. There beside the edge of the pool is the faint outline of a handprint, a real one, darker than the stone, smaller than your own. You press your fingers to it. And suddenly, you are not alone. You feel it, not a spirit, not a vision, but memory. As if someone once sat just like you, knelt right here, and whispered into the dark, waiting to be held. You do not cry, not in this place, not where salt has meaning. You whisper again, if you still remember us, let us stay. Not let it rain, not save our crops, just let us stay. The candle burns low. Its wax pools on the stone like melted bone. You let it die naturally. No breath to put it out, no rush to end the moment. Before you go, you leave something behind, a seed, small, hard. It will never grow in here, but that's not the point. It's a gesture, a promise, a reminder that even in the deepest dark, you still carry something that might become life. You rise slowly, your knees ache, your back stings from the cold of the floor, but you feel steadier. Heavier in a way that comforts you, like you've been folded into the memory of stone. You turn once before leaving, look back at the pool, at the shadows clinging to the ceiling, at the place where your voice now lives. And then step back toward the narrow path, carrying nothing in your hands, but something quieter, stronger in your chest. Some prayers are not answers. They are invitations to speak, to feel, to be remembered by something that never needed to forget you. Section 12. The day a cloud passed and didn't stay. It started without sound, not a breeze, not a shift in smell, just a subtle softening of the light. You didn't even look up at first. You thought your eyes were tired again, blinking too slowly, seeing too little. But the silence changed, not louder, just expectant, the kind of quiet that holds its breath. A child pointed upward. No words, just a hand. You followed their finger. And there it was. A cloud. Alone. Not large, but present. It drifted, with no urgency, cutting across the bone-colored sky like a patch stitched into worn cloth. It wasn't dark, no threat of storm, no swollen belly hanging low with rain, but it moved differently, with purpose, with weight, with the kind of slowness that made people hope. You stepped into its shadow, cool, gentle, and instantly your skin exhaled. Not relief, not yet, but the memory of it. Others emerged from their huts, blinking like cave animals touched by daylight. Even the elders stood, those who hadn't risen in days. Their eyes narrowed, their lips parted, and though no one said the word, everyone thought it. Rain. You felt it building not in the air but in your chest, a rising, a lift, that fragile pressure behind the ribs that only comes with remembering you are capable of wanting. The children ran ahead, arms outstretched, not to catch anything, just to feel, just to reach, even if it was nothing. The cloud passed directly overhead. You could see its underbelly, flat, gray at the edges, like a great beast wandering lost. For one long minute the sun disappeared. Shadows softened, dust stilled, and even the birds looked skyward. You held your breath, not because you expected it, but because you couldn't bear to be breathing when the first drop fell. But it didn't, not one. The cloud moved on, slowly, without pause, without sound, without apology. You watched it go. Everyone did. No one spoke, no one moved. It took a long time before the heat returned, and when it did, it felt harder somehow, sharper, as if the sun was punishing you for looking away. One woman covered her eyes with her shawl, not because of the light, because of what she almost felt. A man muttered something about tricks, said the gods were playing again, said clouds without rain were worse than no clouds at all. You didn't answer, you just sat, in the same spot, long after the shadow had moved on. The ground warmed again. The dust rose again. The silence returned, but different, heavier, like someone had whispered a joke and no one laughed. That evening, the village didn't light its usual fire. There was no need. The moon was bright, too bright, the kind of brightness that keeps things awake even when they want to sleep. A child asked, "Will it come back tomorrow?" No one answered, because you didn't know if he meant the cloud or something else entirely. You lay on your mat, with your back to the door, watching shadows stretch along the ceiling. In your chest, the rising had stopped. Your ribs felt hollow again. But you didn't cry. Not tonight. You were too tired to feel disappointed properly. You dreamed of the cloud, but in the dream, it was larger. It stopped over the village. It opened like a mouth. And inside it was nothing, not even sky. You woke before sunrise, not with fear, with quiet, the kind that fills your throat but never rises. And when you stepped outside, you didn't look up. You didn't need to. You already knew the sky was empty. Sometimes the cruelest part of the dry season isn't the thirst, but the almost, the glimpse of relief that never meant to stay. Section 13. Eating what shouldn't be eaten. It doesn't happen all at once. Hunger is quiet. It arrives in small decisions. Less on the plate, more water in the stew. Skipping breakfast, then skipping lunch. Then forgetting what it was like to wait for dinner. You don't remember the first thing that felt strange. A piece of bark maybe, boiled too long, bitter, like burnt wood. But someone said it was medicine, so you drank it. Next came seeds, the kind usually tossed aside after drying chilies. You crushed them, toasted them, mixed them with ashes and a pinch of salt. It was warm. It was something. You didn't think of it as wrong. You thought of it as next. What comes after nothing else? In the shade, near your hut, you see a boy chewing on something. His cheeks move slowly, like he's not sure if he should continue. You ask what it is. He opens his palm. It's a beetle. He doesn't smile, doesn't laugh, just says it has oil in it. You nod, because you've heard that too. One day, someone roasts squash vines. Not the squash, they're long gone. Just the vines, charred crispy, curled like burnt fingers. They taste like nothing, but they crack in the mouth. That's enough to trick the mind for a little while. A woman tries to grind dried flowers into flour. The tortillas crumble. They don't hold shape, but they're soft enough to chew. The children stop asking what things are made of. They eat slower, more careful, as if their mouths are learning to expect less. A man finds a lizard, not big, not fresh, but it hasn't rotted yet. He boils it in a clay pot, doesn't remove the tail, doesn't speak while eating. You watch him from a distance, not with disgust, not with judgment, just with the quiet knowing that one day it might be you. You dig near the riverbed where water used to run. You find a root, knotted, pale. You cut it into thin strips, bitter. Your tongue goes numb for a while. You keep chewing. At night, the dreams change. No longer feasts, no longer rain. Just images, a cracked bowl, an ant crawling across a finger, a girl licking ash from her thumb. The line between food and not food begins to blur. A boy chews on a piece of leather from a sandal. He doesn't swallow, just chews, for the movement, for the idea. You don't stop him. No one does anymore. A girl is caught trying to eat the seeds from an altar offering. No one scolds her. The priest simply turns away. Perhaps even the gods understand. You catch yourself thinking about the wax from candles, the soft part that drips and cools. Could it be chewed? You don't try it? Not yet. But the thought stays. Your stomach no longer growls. It just aches like it's mourning something it lost long ago. You remember what roasted maize used to smell like? The way it would puff and crack, the sweet smoke curling into the air. Now the air only smells like soot and waiting. And still you survive. You learn to eat in silence, to swallow slowly, to not look too closely, to forget the names of things. Because giving something a name that makes it sacred. And in dry season, nothing is sacred anymore. Only survival, only mouths to fill, only days to pass until the rain remembers you again. In the dry season, you eat what shouldn't be eaten, not because you want to, but because you no longer know what should means. Section 14. A night without sweat. It wasn't cooler, not really, but something felt missing. You woke in the middle of the night, not from a sound, not from a dream, but from absence. The kind of absence you only notice because it used to be constant. You touched your chest, dry, no sheen of sweat on your collarbone, no dampness behind your knees, just warmth, stillness. At first, it felt like relief. After weeks of waking drenched of peeling your clothes off like wet leaves, you almost sighed. But then you sat up, and your fingers brushed your hair dry, too dry, not matted, not sticky. You stood. The floor was warm, but not from your body. The mat had no dark stains, no imprint of moisture left behind. The hut was silent. Even the fire had gone out on its own. You didn't remember falling asleep. You didn't remember dreaming. You stepped outside. The night was bright. Moonlight spilled across the courtyard like cold milk. The earth looked pale, not silver, but sick. No wind moved the trees. Their leaves hung like paper. The animals were quiet. No owls, no frogs, not even the low thrum of beetles in the brush. Only your footsteps, soft, then nothing. You knelt beside the water jar, lifted the lid, leaned in. Still water, too still. You dipped a cloth in and pressed it to your neck. It cooled you. But your skin drank nothing. The dampness stayed on the surface as if you were no longer a body of pores but of stone. Later, you sat near the fire circle with others. No one said it, but everyone knew. Something was wrong. An old woman finally broke the silence. She spoke softly, as if afraid of waking something. This is how it started before. No one asked what she meant. They didn't need to. She spoke of a year when the sky turned white for 40 days, when the trees gave no fruit, when people stopped sweating and then stopped waking. Your body stops crying first, she said. Then it forgets how to speak. Then it forgets how to want. A man shook his head. We're still moving, he said, but even he sounded unsure. You looked around. The children were quiet, not sleeping, just quiet. Their skin looked ashy, not from dirt, but from stillness. Someone tried to light incense. The smoke didn't rise. It curled along the ground like a tired snake. The healer tapped a stone bowl and said, "When sweat leaves the spirits, come closer. They like dry places." No one responded. No one scoffed, because no one knew anymore what to dismiss. That night, when you finally lay down again, you wrapped yourself in a blanket, not for warmth, but to remember texture, to remember pressure, to feel something press back. Your dreams were pale, soft-edged, like walking through fog without feet. And when you woke again, you knew before opening your eyes, still no sweat. Your body no longer reached for water. It had entered a new phase, not of thirst, but of quiet, of slowing. But your heart still beat, not quickly, but enough to count. And maybe, just maybe, that was the last thing left that was wet your blood. Your memory. You stood up slowly. The day ahead would be hot. Your arms would ache. Your skin would crack. But you would move. You would walk. You would sweat again. Eventually. Maybe. When the body stops sweating, it stops speaking. And when the earth does the same, you learn to listen with more than your ears. You listen with skin, with breath, with memory. Section 15. How the Elders Remembered the Last Great Drought. You sit near the fire pit, though there is no fire tonight, only coals breathing slowly like an old man asleep. The circle is small, just a few of you. Younger ones sit farther away, half listening, half dreaming. The elders are in the center, their knees wrapped in cloth, their backs hunched like trees bent from wind long past. Their eyes seem to look both at you and somewhere far behind you. And then quietly, one of them begins to speak. Not to tell a story, not to teach, just to remember. He says, "You think this is dry. This isn't dry. You should have seen the year the corn turned to dust before it could bloom." Another adds, "The riverbed cracked so deep, birds fell in and couldn't fly back out." They speak slowly, not from weakness, but from reverence, as if words themselves must be rationed like water. You listen, not because they demand attention, but because silence would feel ungrateful. One woman with hair like ash and hands always twisting thread says, "There was a time when we buried children without wrapping them, because even the cloth was needed to patch roofs." No one gasps, no one looks away. These are not new stories, only old wounds being unwrapped gently. They talk about a day when all the trees bloomed at once. A trick, they say, a final offering before everything died. The leaves smelled like honey, says one. Like promises, says another. They remember a man who laughed too loudly at the sky, daring it to burn him. 3 days later, he was found near the edge of the village. His lips cracked, his eyes open to the sun. They remember cooking clay with spice, just to pretend it was food. They remember the taste of desperation, how it made even dirt feel warm in the belly. One elder says, "The worst part isn't the hunger, it's the forgetting." Forgetting what full feels like, forgetting the shape of rain on skin, forgetting the weight of wet hair, forgetting how to hope. A long silence follows, the kind that grows gently like a vine curling around old wood. Then one of them asks, "Do you know why we survived?" You don't answer, you wait. He smiles, not kindly, not proudly, just tired, because we knew it would end. Not because we believed, but because we had no choice. Another adds, "And because someone always remembered the cave. Someone always saved a seed." You nod, not because you understand fully, but because the weight of those words feels heavier than the air. Someone hands the eldest a bowl of weak broth. He doesn't drink it, just holds it, letting the warmth seep into his fingers. Maybe he's remembering something. Maybe he's feeling something for the first time in days. You think one day it will be you sitting there, with your own stories, your own silences. You wonder what you'll remember, what details you'll keep, what you'll forget, what you'll choose not to say aloud. And you realize survival isn't just about staying alive, it's about carrying memory, even when it's heavy, even when it hurts, especially then. The elders don't tell you how to survive. They show you what it looks like to endure quietly, completely, and with eyes that have seen the sky, both give and take. Section 16. What the bones in the field. Say it starts the way it always does, with something small, something light, something that catches the corner of your eye as you kneel in the dust searching for weeds, to pull stones, to lift life, to coax from cracked ground. You see a curve, white, barely peeking through the thin topsoil. At first, you think it's a piece of shell or pottery, but when your fingers brush it, you know. Bone. You pause. Let your hand rest there for a moment. The sun is high. The wind is absent. The earth around you is silent. You begin brushing the dirt away, not with urgency, not with fear, just quiet, slow movement. Others notice. They gather behind you, men with empty baskets, women with tired hands, children who don't yet understand what they're seeing. The shape takes form. A rib cage partially collapsed, long bones lying parallel as if the body had tried to curl inward to preserve something, to shelter something that never arrived. No one asks who it is, because it doesn't matter. The who is always the same. Someone who waited, someone who hungered, someone who was once alive and now belongs to the soil. An elder approaches. She leans forward slowly, the weight of too many seasons bending her spine. This place remembers, she says, and that is all. You look closer. There are more. A small jawbone a few steps away, still holding a single tooth. A femur buried so shallow you wonder how it hadn't surfaced sooner. Two phalanges curled around nothing, as if the body had tried to hold on to something invisible. The bones are not arranged. They are not ceremonial. They are not mourned. They simply are. You sit back on your heels. The heat presses down. You feel no wind, but your skin prickles. It's not fear. It's recognition, like looking into a mirror that shows you yesterday, or maybe tomorrow. The elders say the bones speak, not in words, but in weight. They say the land pushes them up when memory is needed, when people forget, when the stories fade, when the drought stretches longer than the soul can bear. Today, the bones are speaking again. You rise and begin to gather them one by one, not for burial that comes later, but to mark them, to remember. You place them gently in a basket lined with leaves. You don't look away. Each piece you lift feels like lifting a sentence that was never finished. A boy asks if it's wrong to move them. An old man replies, it would be worse to ignore them. In the evening, you build a low cairn on the edge of the field, not a grave, a listening post, a place where memory can settle. You light a bundle of copal. The smoke rises slowly. It wraps around your wrists, your fingers, your throat. You cough once, not from the smoke, but from the quiet that has grown too large. Someone hums a song you've heard only in whispers, a morning song, but soft like a lullaby for the earth. That night, you dream of walking through a field where the ground is soft again, moist, alive. The bones have returned below covered resting. But before you wake, you feel a hand take yours. It's not warm, but it is kind. And you hear a voice say, we waited, now you wait. When you rise, you go to the cairn, place your palm on the top stone, and whisper, we heard you. The bones in the field do not accuse, they do not weep, they do not haunt, they remind. And if you forget them, you forget yourself. Section 17. The fire in the storage hut. It started with a smell. Not smoke, not yet. Just warmth different from the heat of the sun. Thicker, sharper, a warmth that tasted of panic before anyone even knew why. You were at the well pit, drawing what little water you could coax from the stone. A boy ran past you barefoot, wide-eyed. No words, just motion. You followed. The air had changed, and not in the way you wanted, not with clouds, not with breeze, but with rising heat, unnatural, angry. By the time you reached the edge of the village, the hut was already coughing black smoke. Thick, bitter, acrid. You didn't need to ask which hut it was. You knew. The storage hut? The only one left that still held something worth guarding. Dried beans, half a sack of maize. A few gourds of pressed oil. seeds wrapped in cloth, even the salt buried in ash to keep it dry. Gone, all of it. No one shouted, no one screamed. The fire didn't roar. It hissed, like a secret being erased, like breath being taken back. People formed a circle. Not to stop it. There was no water, no buckets, just bodies standing still, watching everything they had hoped for turn orange and then black. The heat pressed into your skin, but no one stepped closer. There were no tools, no spells, only eyes and silence. Someone dropped to their knees, not in prayer, in disbelief, as if the legs forgot how to hold the weight of nothing. A woman wept quietly. She had given her last squash to the store last week, to share, to save. Now the smoke took it anyway. A man muttered something about a spark from the cooking fire. Another blamed a careless child. But most said nothing, because blame doesn't fill your stomach. Blame doesn't make the smoke disappear. The fire burned fast, too fast. Dry wood, dry thatch, dry everything. By dusk, it was just embers, glowing softly like coals that had fallen asleep mid-sentence. You walked past it carefully. Ash clung to your sandals, the smell to your hair, the memory to everything. Inside the blackened ruin, a clay pot had cracked from the heat. Its pieces looked like teeth scattered in the dirt. A single charred spoon lay on its side, useless now, but somehow still waiting to serve. A child asked if any seeds survived. No one answered. Later that night, someone placed a few smooth stones where the hut had stood. 3, just to mark it, not as a grave, but as a wound. You lay in your mat, staring at the ceiling, the smoke still in your nose, and you thought. It wasn't just food. It was time. It was the future. And now it was dust, floating into the stars. In dry season, fire is not an enemy. It's a thief, silent, sudden, and always it leaves with more than it takes. Section 18. Dreams of wet leaves. It begins as most dreams do, with something soft. Not a sound, not a voice, but a textured dampness on skin, gentle weight on the eyelids. Cool, familiar. You are walking barefoot in the dream, but the ground is no longer dust, it is soil. Dark, rich, yielding beneath your steps. It clings to your feet in a way that feels comforting, like a memory you didn't know you missed. The air carries a scent you haven't smelled in seasons green. Not the green of hope, but the green of wetness, of plant sap, of fresh-cut leaves and moss that never dries. Around you, the forest is alive again. Leaves shimmer like mirrors turned skyward. Droplets cling to every edge, not falling, just holding as if savoring the weight before gravity takes them. You reach out and brush one with your fingertips. It's cold. Your skin tingles from it. It leaves a faint trail on your hand, and for a moment you are not dreaming. You are remembering. You lift the leaf to your nose. Inhale. There's that scent. Again, mudbark rain. The perfume of everything that refuses to die. And in the dream, you begin to weep. Not from sadness, from recognition, from relief. No one speaks in this dream, but the trees know. Their trunks are wet with runoff, their roots swollen with memory, their branches bent from the weight of joy. You sit beneath one and lean back, let 1,000 cool drops land softly on your shoulders. You close your eyes and smile. In the dream, you are safe. In the dream, you are full. But dreams don't stay. You wake before dawn, still smiling, still wet, but only in the heart. The mat beneath you is dry, the air still, the fire cold. Your body remembers the drought, but your mind still carries dew. You lie there for a long time, refusing to move. Not yet. You want to keep the feeling. You want to stretch it as far as it will go. When you rise, you do so slowly, gently, as if afraid the dream will crack like pottery in the sun. Outside, the trees are the same, dusty, tired, but for a moment, you swear one leaf moves, just slightly, as if shaking off sleep. You don't tell anyone at first. It feels too sacred. But later, you hear it a child, humming a song you didn't teach them. A rhythm that sounds like water dripping from a leaf. You see a woman tilt her face to the sky, eyes closed, smiling, even though the sky is blank. And you know, you're not the only one. Others are dreaming too. One by one they begin to speak. Of vines, of puddles, of fish darting through flooded fields, of wet hands holding wet fruit. The dreams are small, but they spread, like moisture along cracked ground, like hope that knows how to hide in the shadows of despair. And suddenly, the village is not only surviving, it is remembering. You walk to the old terrace where nothing grows. You close your eyes, imagine leaves again, wet, alive, forgiving. And for a moment small and sacred, you believe the drought has not won. Not yet. Some seasons only exist in dreams, but if enough people remember them, sometimes they come back. Section 19. When the rain finally returned. You weren't awake when it started. You were somewhere between dreaming and remembering, a place where the sound of silence feels like water in your ears. Then, a shift, a breath, not inside you, but in the air itself. It was the smell that pulled you back. Wet, raw, impossible. You sat up slowly, thinking maybe someone spilled a bowl. Maybe you had dreamed the scent. But then you saw it. A dark circle in the dust. Perfect, fresh, spreading. A single raindrop. And then another. And another. You didn't call out. You didn't need to, because someone outside gasped, and that sound spread faster than the storm. People emerged from huts like shadows coming back to life, eyes wide, mouths parted, not in words, in awe. The sky was still pale, the clouds soft edged like someone had brushed smoke into a canvas, and yet the rain fell. Not angry, not wild, but patient. It tapped the leaves, it kissed the rooftops, it soaked into the ground with a slow, grateful hush, and the earth sighed. You felt it under your feet, the land remembering itself. You stepped into it barefoot, bareheaded, unafraid. The drops hit your shoulders, your hands, your cheeks. You tilted your face upward and did not blink. Around you, the village stood still, even the children. For once, no games, no shouting, just wide eyes and open hands. A woman whispered, "It's real," as if naming it might scare it away. You saw a man fall to his knees. He didn't cry, but the way his shoulders shook said enough. Beside him, a bowl filled slowly, like a blessing you didn't dare ask for. You walked to the edge of the field, the same place where the bones once rose, now mud, the kind that clings, softens, forgives. You knelt, pressed your palm into the ground, let it sink just a little, just enough to know it was over, or beginning, or both. The rain didn't rush, it stayed. Hours passed, not heavy but sure. You watched the jars fill, listened to them echo, each drop ringing like a slow drum. Children placed cups beneath the eaves, then forgot the cups and opened their mouths instead, laughing, catching, drinking. Someone sang, not a song with words, just a melody, low rising, falling, the kind you hum when you're full, but still want to remember hunger. And you did. You remembered every dry bowl, every dream of wet leaves, every grain of ash that pretended to be food, every night without sweat, every prayer in the cave. All of it. You didn't weep. You didn't laugh. You just stood in the rain and let your body remember how it felt to be touched by something that did not ask anything from you, but still gave. That night, you slept with damp hair and damp breath and the faint scent of clean air clinging to your blanket. The roof dripped, not enough to annoy, just enough to sing, drip, 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 a rhythm older than words. And for the first time in so long, your dreams were quiet, not desperate, not full, just calm. When the rain finally returned, it didn't need thunder to be heard. It spoke in small drops, in soft puddles, in the space where silence used to live. And every drop said, "I never forgot you." Section 20. What you remember under the ceiba. You returned to the tree. Not because you were told to, not because the village asked, but because that's where everything waits. The silence, the past, the names that no longer echo, and the ones that might still be whispered. The ceiba stands just as it always has, taller than the huts, older than the stories, still even after the rain, especially after the rain. You walk without sandals. The ground is soft now, pliable. It gives a little under each step, like the land is exhaling beneath you, finally, after holding its breath too long. At the base of the tree, the roots have drunk deeply. They bulge, glisten. The moss is returning green, eager, delicate. You sit beside them cross-legged and close your eyes. You do not speak, not yet. You listen. You hear water dripping from leaf to leaf, slipping down bark, sinking into the roots. You hear breath, not yours alone. The forest is breathing again. Even the air feels thicker, like something has come back from a long journey. Then softly, you begin to remember. You remember the first dry night, when your mat was damp with sweat, and your heart beat too fast from a thirst you hadn't named yet. You remember the child tapping on an empty pot, the boy chewing a beetle, the girl feeding a corn husk to a doll of sticks. You remember the bones, the cracked jar, the woman who fed her son a gourd no one knew she had. You remember the cave, its silence, the feel of stone beneath your fingers as you left a prayer there and hoped it wouldn't be lost. You remember the cloud that passed and didn't stay, the fire that did, and the dreams that followed after. You remember the sound of rain, not just when it fell, but when it landed, when it touched the roofs, the hands, the faces. You remember the way your breath changed when you believed it, when you allowed yourself to feel saved even just a little. Now beneath the ceiba, you don't try to make sense of it all. You don't reach for lessons. You just sit and let it settle. The tree doesn't speak. It doesn't have to. It remembers with you. In the bark, the seasons. In the roots, the hunger. In the shade, the names you never said aloud. And in the soil, a promise. That nothing is forgotten. Not really. You press your palm to the base of the tree. Its surface is damp, alive. It meets your skin like an old friend, like a memory reaching back. And you whisper not a prayer, not a plea, just one word, one name, yours. Because after all this, what you remember most is that you are still here. Under the ceiba, you don't need to speak loudly. The tree already knows. It has been listening since before the first drought, and it will keep listening long after the next. Outro. Let the dust settle. Let the rain stay. And now you've walked the dry path. You've waited with them, hungered with them. You've crouched beside empty pots and slept through nights without sweat. You've heard bones whisper from the field, and you've watched a single cloud pass without mercy. But you stayed, through all of it, like they did. And finally, the rain returned. Soft, forgiving, unspoken. Maybe you're still hearing it now, that slow rhythm of droplets on old thatch, that breath of green rising from roots, that hush that follows survival. Or maybe it's all gone quiet again, but even in the silence you remember. Because that's what survival becomes. In the end, a memory, a rhythm, a soft thing held in the dark when nothing else can be. So as you lay there now, in your bed, your hammock, your quiet corner of the world, let the story settle like dust that no longer stings. Let it fade gently like smoke after fire, like the last drop soaking into soft soil. And if you sleep now, let it be deep, let it be slow, like roots stretching after the drought, like a ceiba remembering your name. The worst has passed, the air is still, the rain has stayed, and so have you. Good night.